what's ahead of us is just so serious that everybody has to pull together as one. And if we do, we'll get through this thing. When you bring in climate change, it changes the whole context, because what we're doing to all forms of life, not just us, but everything that is living, we're headed in a disastrous route. And so we have to take whatever steps are necessary, green energy and everything else. We have to get our act together. There's no second chance on this. It's the biggest challenge that humanity has ever had.
It makes me feel embarrassed to be part of the boomer generation that has created the situation that we're in. We've taken far too much from the planet, and we're not willing to give back and make a sacrifice like our grandparents and our parents made for us during the World Wars.
I love turbines. They're graceful, they're beautiful, they're huge. They generate all of this power.
To us, it's a sign of intelligent life on Earth, that we can see a wind farm and think that people are actually thinking ahead and thinking of the future and doing something that's progressive and that is really positive for the next generation, and not taking but giving.
And we've got a climate change literacy deficit. And well, how do you change that? Well, the first thing you can do is learn the real story.
For Heather and I, it all started with the fact that we moved here in 1980 and the county was always windy. We'd always notice, we'd go for our walks, and by noon the winds would pick up. It was inevitable, you were going to get winds, sometimes really strong winds. It was just always in our conscience that, hey, this is a windy place. So at the time, the county was destined to be the first in Ontario where wind farms would be. And they came here because the wind was here. And anybody who looks at a wind map will see the winds are best along the lakes, and it also happens to be where most of the population is in Ontario. So we got excited when we thought, okay, now we're going to be able to convert this natural resource we have that's always here and make electricity from it. It's clean, it doesn't pollute, it was just a natural, it made sense. And so we got behind it and we supported it.
We are setting an example here for the world. People have noticed, I mean, this white pines, this is a big deal. And I mean, it is stretched worldwide. It teaches our children the positive ways of looking after this planet. It's up to us. You know, we are the ones going ahead with this. We need to look out for the young people. It was about 20 years ago when the idea of having wind in the county was first suggested. What a great place in this county with the high winds, and it's just perfect for wind.
The first proposal would have actually hit the stage of open houses in about 2000, 2001. So right away there was a small group formed to resist them. Most people don't understand why you wouldn't like them, but there was always a resistance to change, and it was new. And it's something visible. You can't hide a wind turbine. There it is. It's up there where the wind is.
It's almost spiritual. You can go back there and it's so peaceful. I can go back on my motorbike and sit under there, which I do, and I'll spend an hour and I'll just be underneath it and I'll look up. It's just beautiful. It's peaceful.
The wind farm sort of fits nicely in the rural setting. There's farmland, there's animals, there's people here and there, but it just sort of fits in the landscape. From the air, it's just beautiful. It belongs. As time grew, the opposition got more focused, and they had a province-wide lobby group that assisted them. And so they were very effective in creating a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, getting a lot of media attention, and basically dragging things on. This project was dragged on through court cases, and it was cut down from 59 turbines to 27 to 9.
Ministry of Environment studied it closely. They picked these 9 that were left because they are not on anything that is going to disturb any wildlife. There's very little wildlife there.
I always had in my mind, when I'd go to any of the places we drive by that had projects that had failed and come to an end, I'd always seen where they were going to go. So in my mind, I always saw the turbines, and to actually see them going up, it was just like incredibly inspiring to think that finally we're going to see this happen.
It was so exciting. Everybody, the feeling in the air around here, like it was just, everybody was pumped, everybody was happy. This place was so busy, 100 workers coming in, and it was just fantastic. I mean, it just boosted the economy around here for sure, because everything from ice to firewood to accommodations and, whatever, beer, everything, and fantastic. It was just something so positive in the air.
The project actually started to be built in the spring of this year, and it was 2 weeks away from completion when an election happened and the tide completely turned and it was stopped in its tracks.
I remember the day that we heard that they canceled it, it was like devastating. Everybody came in and it was just quiet. Everybody was just shot out, just kind of, wow, what have they done?
I'd say the initial feeling when that was announced was complete shock and disbelief. I don't think anybody believed that any government would be so foolish as to do that, as to actually dismantle a wind farm that was completed or nearly completed. So I'd have to say disbelief.
These wind turbines, these fabulous wind turbines that we have in Milford, are this fabulous step in the right direction. Why on earth would you tear them down? The mere thought of eliminating them is just, it's horrifying.
When they pulled the plug, it was like sucked all the energy right out of Milford, and look at it. Like, it's depressing. It is.
You're going to tear all that down? You're going to need a lot more than your pickaxe and your crowbar and a wheelbarrow.
I mean, these are huge, huge holes. The rebar alone is 52 tons of rebar, and it's a beautiful, like a cobweb of intertwined iron, and then on top of that there's 42 dump truck loads of cement at 20 tons a load. I think we end up with about 890 tons of mass in the ground by the rebar and the cement. So that in itself, how do you take that take that out of the ground? They're already up, they're going to create clean energy. No, it's an environmental disaster to take them back down.
That would be a monstrous mistake.
It happened so fast, and a lot of the people who had just assumed it was going to happen because it was going along were not really prepared for how do we deal with this? It's what do we do? And so now people are starting to actually take action because they realize this is insane, really, that this is happening. When the wind farm was being built, we had people coming up to us who knew we had been supporters for a long time, and we'd never really heard from them. And they would come up to us and say, thank goodness it's happening. Like, they were actually relieved, but they never said anything because they just kind of kept their heads low, and a lot of times you take flack for taking a position.
I just think the whole situation has just gone out of control. I mean, there's wind farms going up all over the place. They don't get this kind of behavior. But the people that were against them, they used everything that they could possibly think of, and most of it was not true. They're misinforming people, but that's what people were hearing.
Negative is easy to sell. It's much harder selling hope, and that's been a difficult thing, is that trying to inspire hope, it's a much bigger challenge than creating fear.
Now it's reversing. Now with all the letters people are putting in the paper, and we're loud now. It's our turn to be loud. It's our turn to be heard, and we're out there. There's a lot of us speaking up now.
You have an obligation, I think, to inform yourself of what's really happening.
The wind is actually one of the lowest forms of electricity as far as the cost to the consumer. And that people aren't getting informed that.
They do say nuclear is their answer because it's far away and it's been around for 40 years. So what the heck, it was only designed for 30 years, but let's keep them running. Nothing will happen, everything's fine, and it's far away. And so when you ask them, where do you want the nuclear plant in Prince Edward County, they put their arms up and they say, no, that's not what I meant. So it's okay for someone else to live around something risky and produce the power that I use here in Prince Edward County, but don't ask me to produce the power where I can see it. I think that's what it boils down to. You like the look of them or you don't. If you don't like the look of them, then you're going to create a whole bunch of reasons why, because appearance doesn't really justify your case. So you have to build a case. There's always been fears, if you look back, cell towers and vaccines and telephones, and everything that we take for granted now was feared because it was new and it was going to cause problems. And eventually they all dissipate. And I think one of the reasons that anti-wind groups fight so hard to keep it out of their area is because once a wind farm is built, then all the myths, they fade away. And even people who had resisted, casually resisted, don't get it. Like, what's the problem? They don't look so bad. There isn't a sound problem. They're not killing birds. There's been 19 different health studies done by countries around the world where millions of dollars have been spent on studying all the health-related aspects of wind farms. And each one has been presented, and it's all been done in an objective way, not by a company, but by the government. And there's been no reason to ever stop wind farms from being developed. Each time the study comes out, groups just say, well, that's not the answer they wanted, so I don't believe it. Eventually, like, when do you stop trying to convince people? If they don't open their mind to the possibility that they could be wrong, then they'll just continue to find reason. I've spent a lot of time trying to look at it from the other side, to question myself, because I think if you don't question your beliefs, then you're just sort of in the same box as the people that are fighting you. I really cannot come up with a reason why I should be afraid or that my kids should be afraid. And we're living within 1 kilometer of the closest turbine. We have no fears whatsoever. We're excited and we want to see it going.
So we better figure out what the heck we're doing and figure out fast and get working together. It's a tall order, but I mean, we've seen people rise to big challenges like that before. And I like to think that, yeah, we're going to do it again.
Try to look at the bigger picture and not just focus on your little neighborhood, because we're all part of the planet, the world. And our generation has an obligation, a moral imperative, I think, to defend the next generation and do things that are going to give them a chance to have a life that's healthy and a climate that's livable.
I just hope that eventually the people will accept them and understand them and appreciate them the way I do, and see the good in it, because there's just so much more good than bad to a wind turbine.
Kind of tossing our kids under the bus, and for me that's unacceptable. And I feel like it's happening on our watch, and all we can do is make sure that we do everything we can to try to make sure that it doesn't happen. So that drives me every day.
Right now, we're facing a man-made disaster of global scale. Our greatest threat in thousands of years, climate change. If we don't take action, the collapse of our civilizations and the extinction of much of the natural world is on the horizon. The people have spoken. Leaders of the world, you must lead. The continuation of our civilizations and the natural world upon which we depend is in your hands.
it's so blatantly obvious that we can't keep maintaining the status quo, that the way we're doing things is destroying the planet. And so there's better ways to do it. There's answers, there's solutions, and all we need to do is have the willpower to accept change and be willing to do things in a different way. When someone like David Attenborough says things like that, you know it's not said lightly, and it's meant to have an impact. If we don't, within 10 to 12 years, do the things that is going to have a chance to do that, then the tipping points are going to be reached and there may not be a recovery. We're the last generation who has a chance to address climate change.